Hello and welcome to my Pain Archive. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the TV series Killjoy and what I think about it. I want to start by saying that I think it's a very good show, but it's definitely very different from what I thought it was going to be when I started watching the show. When I first saw the show, I thought it was going to be a bouncing hunter story, tracking criminals and planning how to get them and figuring out how to capture dangerous people. That's definitely not what the show becomes, but it is sort of how it starts. So here are some of the things I like about it. First up, it starts out in the middle of the action, in the middle of our main characters capturing a dangerous criminal. It very quickly establishes the universe and very quickly shows us what the universe is about, instead of dumping a lot of information about who they are and what's going on. Very quickly figure out, okay, these are bounty hunters, they are capturing people, and they are a team. I think that works really, really well, because you don't get to know everything from the start. You get a small hint about their history together, what they did, and how they came to become a team, and who they work for. You don't see the origin of the characters and follow it gradually. And it's a very interesting way to make the story, because you think one thing about the characters and then you get some new information and your viewpoint upon the characters changes. Another thing that the show quickly establishes that I really like is the entire way this universe is. When we get introduced to Old Town, which isn't a very high-tech town, this is a sci-fi series, but you very quickly get the feeling that it isn't like Star Wars or Star Trek. It isn't teleporters or laser weapons or personal energy shields. It's still the future and still high tech, but it's not very high tech. At least not in the beginning, and at least not in the main episodes we are following in the beginning. You can also see that Old Town is very dirty and not a really nice place to live, and it really sets the tone for the series. It isn't a nice futuristic story about some bounty hunters with high technology capturing criminals and helping to clean up society. It's not that kind of story, and you can quickly see that because we aren't following people in a really high-tech thing where they go in and, wear weapons and almost act as police officers. But one thing I really do like about the show is that despite us starting in this very gritty, very, shall we say, normal-looking, dirty city that isn't that very futuristic, we still get to see differences. We get to see the differences in this place they are. We get to meet royalty and see how they live. And we get to see a place called Utopia. If you watch the show, it's the very high-tech place where they buy a lot of things. And you can clearly see a contrast, which also shows us that this is a universe where high-tech things does exist, but Old Town doesn't have it, which again emphasized this thing that Old Town isn't a good place to live. There exist better places, so the main place we are isn't nice, isn't good, and it really sets the tone. Now I'm going to mention some factions from the show, what I think about them, and why I think they're really interesting. The first faction we very quickly get introduced to is the Reclamation Apprehension Coalition, or RAC for short. As with many other things in the show, we get small hints and small explanations gradually about what the RAC is and what it does. But I really like the idea of this sort of mercenary company where you pull out bounties and you have this legitimate business taking care of it, where they rank the different jobs based on what is required, and that their people are also ranked based on what sort of jobs they can take, and they have badges like police officers, so they have actual authority to go in and take people. They aren't just going in guns blazing and killing everyone. They might have to, but they have legitimate authority. And I like that idea. They are bounty hunters, but they are sort of also police officers. They do what they're supposed to, and they do their job. But their job isn't like performed by an actual government branch, and also like the explanation for this, and it is that there's a large universe, so people can go and jump from planet to planet. So the idea is that you can't police all of this, and you can't capture a person if he just jumps to takes to another planet, but these people can. I really find this idea interesting in the universe, and I like the sort of combination of something not very legitimate, which is bounty hunting, becoming sort of legitimate, and that they actually have like criteria for people becoming VAC agents. You have to apply and you have to be accepted, not just everyone can do it. Next faction, which I find very interesting, is the company / the Nine. The Nine are the 9 families who control the company, so they're sort of one entity. I really like the idea of this being a government that sort of exists but doesn't really work that well, because it isn't a government. They control the sector of space, they control the mining and the companies, and they control a lot of things, but they aren't a government with like representatives who are chosen by the people. They aren't really a dictatorship interested in controlling everything either. They sort of just exist to get their money, just like any other company, and they provide a little bit of security, but they don't do it very well. And what I like about this is that it changes the way you look at the place. It isn't, for instance, like Star Wars, where if you followed a place like this, you could say, oh, it's a long way from the Republic and from the Senate, and they don't really have a lot of authority there, so that's why the place isn't as good to live in. But there is an established government in this show, in this place, who isn't far away. They just aren't doing their job very well, and makes this place just look more worse to be in, because it is a part of the galaxy that could have an established, focused government that control and help people, but it doesn't. Last faction I'm going to talk about are the main bad guys of the series, which are named the Holland. I think they're a very interesting enemy. They are not a very new idea. They are a hive mind that controls people, that makes them very, very hard to kill, almost impossible to kill. And as a hive mind, of course, every new person they get adds to their collective knowledge. It's really not a new idea, but it's still a very good idea. It works, it's terrifying, and it really makes a scary villain, because you know that these things they're fighting aren't exactly human anymore. We get explanations of them losing their emotional connections to anyone they've ever known, which also makes it really scary, because you don't want these kind of people to win. They aren't human, and not only aren't they human, but they are almost the opposite of humans. They don't really age, they don't die, and they don't have any emotions. Now, the introduction of the Holland and the first leader we meet of them, who's called Klein, is where the story really changed from what I expected. As stated, I expect the bounty hunter story, not something big, serious, save the galaxy. But it's what it ends up becoming. And I didn't really see it coming, but it really makes for a very good story nevertheless. Now I'm going to talk about some of the characters from this show that I like. I'm going to mainly focus on the main characters and a few side characters, but many of the side characters are also really good. So just because I don't mention one doesn't mean I didn't like that character, or because I didn't find that character interesting. But I'm trying to make sure this video isn't really, really long. Just a more warning before I begin. With these characters, I'm probably going to spoil some things about them. I'm going to probably go into more spoilers than I already have. So if you don't want to know anything about the plots and the characters, then don't watch the rest of this video. Since I already mentioned Klein, why not just start with him? I really like Klein as a villain in the beginning of the show, because we didn't really know much about him. We only saw the things from the main character called Dutch's point of view, and she doesn't like him very much. He was her, should we call it, guardian or foster father, or whatever word you want to use, but she grew up with him, and he really didn't treat her very well. He trained her to become an assassin and forced her to kill people. Even as a little girl, she was forced to kill people. And of course, this gives us, as the viewers, this viewpoint of him being very bad, and we want her to succeed in stopping him. But it turns out that he didn't just do it to be evil, he did it for something bigger. He had a bigger fight in mind, he had a bigger purpose in mind. He needed to be ready for this. He needed to fight Anila and the lady, which are characters I'm going to discuss later on. But I like this sort of twist to him, how we see him as this ultimate evil guy. But he isn't, or well, he is, but it's more complicated than that. Now I'm quickly going to tell you about what I think about Dutch. I'm not going to go in depth with all she does, everything she says, and all her character traits, but I'm going to give you my overview of what I think about her. I really like Dutch as a character. She's a very cool main character. She's a very badass fighter, and in the beginning that's what you see. This very strong female character who can fight, and she's really the leader of the team. But there's a lot more to her than just that, and we figured that out throughout the show, as stated with my introduction about Klein. She was forced to kill people as a little girl. She has a really bad past, and that is some of the things that drives the things she does. That explains why she's a really good fighter, but also why she does what she does. She has a really great friendship with John Jacoby, which is they're also part of the team in the beginning, and they have this like sibling thing where they really just feel like they are brother and sister. But we can also see that she means really well throughout the show. She wants to do what's right, because she of course knows that what Klein did to her wasn't right. She wants to do what's right, but she's also been through all of these things, so she's very ready to do the tough things, to kill people, to do what needs to be done. And because she's been through all of these tough times, and she hasn't really had a lot of friends when she grew up, so the friends she has in the show, she's really willing to do everything. And you can really see that, because one of the main things that are in the show is that Dutch will always get you out of any problems she brings you into. That's the thing many of the characters likes about her. That's the thing I like about her. Of course, that doesn't always work, but it really shows that this character has a lot to her, and she has reasonings for the things she does. And I like the story, this cool character, which is actually really tragic when you think about it. But you can't really see it. She hasn't become a murderous psychopath, but you can see it in small glimpses. I'm going to tell you about John Jacoby. He is also a really great character. He is funny, and he is a very stereotypical nerd. He knows everything about technology, he reads comic books, and he's really just the funny character of the group. But what he also is, because he isn't just comic relief, is that he's the moral of the group. He always lightens the mood, but he also always keeps everyone focused on what is right. What is the right thing to do here, and he really tells them when they do something wrong. And when John Jacoby says you do something wrong, and when he's angry at you, you know you did something wrong. I really like him because he has the very great partnership with Dutch. Of course, as stated earlier, they have this sibling thing, and you really feel that they go back a long time, and the people who play these characters really do it really well. But what I also really like him is that he has this very good relationship with his brother, because his brother ended up becoming part of the team. And you really see it. You really see this brotherly friendship between them, that despite them not having seen each other a long time, they really care for one another. And they didn't grow up in the best of conditions, and so you really get to feel for them. I'm just going to quickly tell you about his brother, Devin Jacoby. He's really the opposite of his brother. He isn't a nerd, he doesn't know anything about technology. He's a former soldier, and he has a very lot of regret in the beginning of the show, where we see him regretting things that happened to him. It turns out that he was tricked and he was brainwashed, but you really get this feeling from him that he is a soldier who suffers from something, PTSD or something like that. It's also really nice to see him becoming a part of the team, because they start off as only being, of course, Dutch and John, and that's how it had been for many years. And then he suddenly comes into their lives and grows up and becomes a part of the team. I really liked seeing that. And one thing I really liked like about him is he has this relationship with Dutch, a romantic relationship, and I like seeing that develop. I think it's very well done because it sort of makes sense. Because John and Dutch are great friends, but they don't really seem romantically involved. So I like the twist that it ends up becoming his brother that she has something with, and see how they both react to this, especially in these circumstances they're in with trying to save the world. They just make a really interesting group. Overall, we say they very well complement one another as characters. So now I'm going to tell you about the villain of the later seasons of the show, which is Anila. I think she's very interesting because she comes with a very good twist. She's basically that evil Dutch. I mean, she looks like her. If you've seen the show, you know exactly what I mean. She is Dutch, and she's described as an evil version of her because she is a Holland. So she's sort of the polar opposite of Dutch. But Dutch is quite serious. She's very laughing and very evil and maniacal. But what makes it even better is that we realize that there's a lot more going on here. There's a bigger connection between the two of them, and they don't know it, and they sort of figure it out along the way because of things in the story that prevents both Anila and Dutch from knowing their connection. But what I really also like about it is that it turns out that she's just like Client. She's a piece of a bigger game. She appears to be the evil villain that we want to destroy, but she ends up becoming more. And although I say it's sort of like Client, don't think that the show just reused it. It makes a lot of sense, and it's really well made. One thing I also like about the character is that she goes from the big evil who threatens the galaxy to actually becoming an ally. And she actually has development. Her character develops. She ends up falling in love with another antagonist of the show called Dulcea Kendry, and it changes her character because she ends up by falling in love with someone. We end up seeing her going from this person who doesn't really care about anything or anyone except for Klein to loving another person. Now I'm going to quickly mention some side characters that I especially liked, but as stated earlier, there are many other side characters that I also like. But again, this video would be much longer if I had to mention every single one of them and why I loved every single one of them. First off is Dulcea Kendry. She's a very interesting antagonist because she's very manipulative, and she makes for a very interesting love story between her and Anila, because you don't really know whether she likes Anila, whether she plays with her in the beginning, but it turns out that she actually really loves her. Same thing goes for Anila. We never really knew whether she actually loved her, but she does. And she makes for this character that you really love to hate, because she does a lot of bad things to the main cast of characters. She kills another side character called Potter, which is the great love of John Jacobi, and because of that, I really dislike her in the form that I disliked what she did, but I liked her as a character. The next two characters I'm going to talk about is Pippin and Seth. I'm just going to quickly say I really loved their story, their romance in this story, because they don't start out as romantic partners, but they become romantic partners. And they are just two side characters which we get to know, and they end up falling in love. We get to see a little bit more about that, and they really end up helping one another, and I like the way it developed. Like this little thing that started and ended up becoming a romance between two characters we didn't really know. And then the tragic death of Pippin, which ended up by making him a hero, and I liked that aspect to him because he wasn't really the most heroic character in the beginning, but he ended up becoming that, both because he falls in love with Seth and wants to impress her and help with this cause, that she's a part of, but also it's really tragic because he ends up by dying, but becomes a hero through dying. And it really, really just shocked me that they killed him off, but it also really worked very well in the story. The last character I'm going to mention is Lucy, which is the ship that the main cast flies around in. I like Lucy. She's really funny because, well, she's the ship, so it's a thing you wouldn't really suspect have a personality. But she has a personality with her computer voice, and she makes some funny jokes and remarks throughout the story, which I just really like, having Lucy answer people back, or having people say something to Lucy, and she's like, I'm a ship, so I don't have this and that. I really like that. She's a funny character, and it's nice to see a ship with an actual literal personality. It also really makes you wonder how much of a human being she is. Is she an intelligence? Does she understand what's happening? What is she exactly? Because she shows liking John a lot. It even appears like she prefers him over Dutch, which I find interesting because you would think she's a ship, she's a machine, so can't she really prefer one of them over the other? Well, I really like that. And I think it works really well because you end up caring about her because she has a personality. So if the ship gets attacked or gets in danger, it's not like, oh no, it's the ship we've been following. No, it's, oh no, it's Lucy. Conclusion, I really like this show because it has some great characters and some awesome moments where we get to see these characters really struggle with their battle against this inhuman enemy. And it really makes for a very interesting story because nothing is as it seems. There's always a twist waiting around the corner. Always a bad guy who wasn't that bad, or a bigger piece, a bigger battle, a bigger puzzle we didn't see coming. And it never really ends as you suspect. For instance, in the season I have watched so far, the last episode sort of ends like it looks like the bad guy has won, the lady has won so far. And that's a twist you don't suspect to see coming because it's not usual to let the bad guy win. As always, this has been my opinion archive, and which video got quite long, but I hope you liked it. I hope you found my ideas interesting. If you agree with me or disagree with me, or have anything to add or say, then please tell me because I would like to know. I hope you will consider subscribing.